Hello and welcome back to another episode of my MotoGP 20 career mode here for our third season in the MotoGP class. And this episode is going to be the 9th round of the season at the Dutch Grand Prix, the TT Assen. But before we do get into it, we do need to have a quick little look at the credits there, because we've only got 52,903 remaining. So we finally dropped below 100,000, and that'll be because we had to pay the staff, obviously, in the last episode. So we're not looking too good. But I think we can do another upgrade on the Moto 2 class, so that's good. We actually have 1,000 more than we need for this frame here, so I will put that on. So we've got 402 left, which isn't enough for any more upgrades. So start another frame upgrade then for the Moto 2 team. It's going to take 6 weeks for that one to come in. And obviously for the Moto 3 team, it is fully upgraded anyway. So there's nothing that we can do on that front. So the next thing for us to do then is to head into the Moto 3 race. I'm hoping that they'll be a little bit better in this episode because the last few they've been pretty poor, and obviously now at 50,000 we are going to be running out of cash very, very shortly, so I don't think we're going to be able to keep going at this rate, so we do need them to actually start getting in the top 5. Hernandez did actually end up on pole here in the last season, so hopefully he could try and do that again. So then, Manuel Hernandez has qualified in 9th place for this race, Johnny Stewart in 8th position, so pretty normal qualifying positions for them both. They're usually around 8th or 9th position. Stewart sometimes up to 7th. So you never know what you're going to get. They might charge their way to the front and actually get a good result, or they might go absolutely backwards. You never know with these two. They are absolutely all over the place. So we'll get this race started then. See which two riders are going to turn up this weekend. I hope it's the ones that are going to get through to the front. So then we're watching Hernandez. We'll swap to Stewart since he is the lead rider, waiting for the lights to go out here. Then at Assen, lights out and away we go. Stewart's actually not had a terrible start. Hernandez hasn't had the best start by the looks of it. He's already up to 7th place then for Stewart as they go down towards the first corner. Garcia's leading ahead of McPhee, and now Cobra actually going around the outside of McPhee as well. So into the first corner then Stewart got up into 7th briefly, but Mino went back around the outside of him, putting him back down to 8th place. Hernandez actually has got away okay. He's just been passed by one of the Leopards. I think it's Dennis Fodger on the inside. So I guess not the best start, but also not absolutely dreadful. But he is now being passed by a few of the riders. Acosta and Artigas as well are both going past him, and he has now been shuffled back down to 12th place, and he's got one of the Tech 3 bikes up the inside of him as well. So he's going absolutely backwards. I have no idea what's happened to Manuel Hernandez in these last couple of episodes, but he's been absolutely appalling. Stewart then still in 8th place as they go towards a very tricky section, the right-left. The AI do struggle with this a little bit. We've got a pretty good camera angle there, actually. He's closing right up to the back of Mino. Can he try and make a pass down towards this right-hander? He couldn't quite do it, but Acosta is now the one he's got to worry about. Acosta straight around the outside, like he was standing still, so he's now been moved down to 9th place. So Stewart has now moved down into 9th place, and he's under attack by Dennis Fodger as well, so going to the bolt. He's still in front of Fodger for now, but it doesn't look good. So then he goes back up the inside of Acosta, then Acosta went a little bit wide, trying to get past Mino in front, so Stewart back up into 8th position, so that is nice to see that he has got back in front of him, but Acosta still hanging around the outside. I think Acosta might have actually got the position back once again, so these two really going at it. Artigas now looking at the inside as well, so Artigas passes Stewart. Stewart's going to be passed by Fodger as well in a second, and you can see in the background Hernandez is still right there, so Hernandez and Stewart pretty close on circuit, but Stewart's actually managed to get back in front of Artigas on the run down to the chicane. Artigas once again, though, gets up the inside through the chicane, and Fodger gets him on the exit, so they're both going backwards again in this race. So I have no idea what's happening and why they're struggling in these last few races. Ever since Le Mans, they've been absolutely nowhere, but now down to 11th place for Stewart, then 12th place for Hernandez, with Sasaki right behind him, and one of the Honda Team Asia bikes as well, I think it's Yuki Kuni. So Kuni is now in front of Hernandez, so Hernandez has dropped down yet another position. Stewart was looking like he was closing up to the back of Fodger, but now he looks like he's susceptible to Kuni as well as they go towards the chicane once again. Is he going to stick it up the inside? Not quite, but he might get him in the second part. Actually, he's a little bit too far behind to attack here, but I'm sure he'll be past him very, very shortly because he's come from behind. He's passed Hernandez really easily. He's now looking for a move on Stewart as well, so Stewart really, really under pressure here from Yuki Kuni. So then, Stewart at this point has actually still managed to keep in front of Kuni, which is quite surprising because he closed up to him a lot and was looking really, really aggressive. But we're a good half a lap later, and Stewart is now actually closing up to the back of Fodger once again. So it seems like sort of the last sector and the first sector, Stewart gets a pretty good run and closes right to the back of Fodger. He's looking round the outside. That's not really the place you want to do it unless you can stick it up the inside into Strubben, but he's not close enough. He went too wide. You need to go right on the outside of someone, not super, super wide. You need to be very, very close to them. And actually, Hernandez, I think, has just got back in front of Kuni on the exit of Strubben. So Hernandez, unfortunately, not quite able to get through, but he doesn't like he's attacking Cunny once again. So Cunny probably dropping back more than Stewart going forward, since obviously Hernandez is also catching up to the back of him. But he is sat in behind the two Leopard bikes then, is Stewart. So hopefully he can pick up the pieces from some of their battling ahead. So then it's getting pretty interesting now with the two Leopards and Acosta going side by side, well, 3 wide through that corner there, ahead of Johnny Stewart. As they go down towards the chicane then, it looks like Acosta is probably struggling a little bit. It looks like he's actually holding up the two Leopards. You can see Cunny is coming in the background as well, so it's going to be a bit of a scrap on these last couple of laps. Can Stewart get past any of them? He's got past Foggia as they go down towards the first corner. He's swerved in front of Foggia a little bit. Hopefully, he can try past Artigas as well on the run down towards his first corner, up the inside of Artigas. Artigas has the outside, but that's probably the worst line to have through this first section of the circuit. So will Stewart be able to get back up into ninth? Yes, he does. So he gets past Artigas now, and Acosta is actually pushing Mino along through the section. Artigas tries to go around the outside of Stewart, but he isn't able to pull it off. So Stewart actually making a bit of a comeback here. He's back up into ninth place then. And it looks like Mino has been actually sat up there by Pedro Acosta. So it might be Mino that's the bottleneck here. Can Stewart try and capitalise on this little battle as they go down the straight towards the chicane? Stewart is on the outside, which is probably not the favoured line, but if he can get alongside, you can swoop around the outside, but he didn't quite manage to do it on this occasion. But it looks like Mino's going super slow. He's past Mino now, so both of them go past Mino. Acosta and Stewart both go past Andrea Mino, so Stewart back up into 8th position. So he's actually turned it round in about a lap very, very quickly. You can see Hernandez in the background as well as also closing up to that little group of riders there that are obviously being stuck behind Andrea Mino. So hopefully Hernandez can try and fight his way through, but it looks like he's actually under attack by Andy Farad Izdahar in the background there. So hopefully he can try and keep in front of him. Hernandez, you can see, is still in 13th, but he's right on the back of Andrea Mino now, and the two Leopards actually all look to be struggling a little bit. So hopefully Hernandez can try and pick off these guys as well as they come towards the end of this penultimate lap of the race. He goes up the inside of one of them. It was Dennis Foggia that he's gone past there as they go down towards the chicane. Then he's got the drive. Foggia is actually back in front of him again, and Izdahar is looking at the inside. Same with Sasaki as well, so he's got to make sure he doesn't get hung out to dry here. Round the outside, down towards the chicane. He's going to go up the inside of Andrea Mino into the chicane because Mino really is the major bottleneck in this. So Hernandez back up into 12th position there, but still not an ideal position as they start the final lap of the race. So coming through the last couple of corners here, Stewart isn't going to quite be able to attack Acosta into this last chicane, I don't think. So a little bit unfortunate there, but he actually has had decent pace on the last couple of laps here, obviously to catch up to the back of Pedro. But through the last chicane then, Stewart is going to come home in 8th place, and I think Hernandez is still in 12th. If we swap to him then, yes he is, he just held off Andy Farad Izdahar. So then, Sergio Garcia actually won the race then ahead of Jeremy Alcoba in 2nd place with Darren Binder in 3rd. Stewart ended up in 8th position, so 1 position lower than he was in the last race. So I suppose not a million miles off that top 5, but it's still not quite what we need. And Hernandez down in 12th place. To be honest, that's probably a normal finishing position for Hernandez. He seems to be very similar to the level he was at last year, even though the bike is a bit better, and I was expecting him to be a little bit better with the extra experience. So in the Riders' Championship then, John McPhee continues to lead ahead of Suzuki and Binder. Stewart stays put in 7th position because of course he beat Mino. Garcia won, so Garcia is definitely pulling away from him now. But Foggia and Hernandez actually both move ahead of Fallon, so I don't know what happened to Fallon in that race, but Hernandez moves up into 10th in the championship then. Foggia moves up to 9th, and obviously with Hernandez also beating Foggia, I believe there's only 1 point between the two of them. So Hernandez could actually still get back into this top 10 in the championship, but as of late his form has been very poor. In the Teams Championship then, we're still sat in 5th position, not too far behind the Red Bull KTM IO team, but unfortunately Acosta obviously beat both my riders today, but their points total probably still overhauled his, and I don't think his teammates scored in the race. So we are closing up to those guys in front, but there's still a fairly big gap, obviously 15 points, which, yeah, can be swung fairly easily in the Teams Championship. Judging by our form, we're not going to be pulling 45, so 15 is going to be quite a gap to overcome. So hopefully we actually can try and do that and overtake them, get up into 4th place in the championship once again, because I do want to still fight for that 2nd or 3rd, but it really is starting to drift away since the performance in the last few races has been pretty poor. So then, next thing to do is to head on to the Moto2 race. Hopefully, again, with this being a bit of a rider circuit, Akagi can do well. Hopefully Jackson can make that step up as well, but I'm not really putting my hopes on it. I don't think she really will. She seems to be really, really struggling in Moto2 so far, but hopefully they'll both be decent. But we'll head down to the grid and see how they got on in qualifying and how they're going to get on in the race. So then, Daisy Jackson's actually qualified in 13th position, which is a good performance. Akagi in 7th as well. So I think maybe some of these bike upgrades that have been coming in are finally starting to show on the bike, and they are a little bit better because both within the top 15, very, very close to Akagi actually getting the qualifying objective once again. Of course, he got pole in the last race. 7th place is not too far outside the top 5, so he almost got it in qualifying. Hopefully, if he gets off to a good start, maybe he can fight for that top 5, but I think that probably will be slightly wishful thinking, but we'll see what he can do. So let's get this race started, and I'm hoping that he can bring us home a top 5 finish. So then swapping to Akagi, 7th place on the grid, waiting for the lights to go out here at Assen. Lights out and away we go, and once again a pretty good start. He has already got past Joe Robertson, that is to go down towards the first corner, getting a little bit of slipstream off Marco Bezzecchi, but Bezzecchi moves over a little bit. Lowe's has major contact with Bezzecchi actually on the way into the first corner, and around the outside goes Akagi, and Bezzecchi and Ralph Fernandez both went super wide for that first corner, which actually put Akagi up into 3rd place briefly there. He is now back down to 4th as Navarro's gone on the inside of him. Lowe's seems to be checking out already. Round the outside then for Akagi, I think that's Remy Gardner, just got back in front of him, but will Akagi be able to get back up the inside through Strubben? Yes, I think he actually will be able to, which is quite rare to see that AI actually win out on that kind of move. They do tend to struggle a little bit with it. So Akagi then up to 4th place. It's been a fantastic start. Gardner might be able to get back past him up towards the chicane because of course we have been lacking straight line speed throughout the whole season, but no, he actually keeps in front of Remy Gardner for now. So Akagi, fantastic start from 7th to 4th place, and he's close up to the back of Fabio Di Gianantonio in front of him as well actually. I think Jackson's got off to a pretty good start, but Akagi now goes underneath Fabio Di Gianantonio up into 3rd position. So Akagi's been a fantastic start from 7th on the grid all the way up to 3rd. So Daisy Jackson actually has dropped down into 18th position, but I think she was a little bit higher up when I saw her in the background. I think she's just been super mired through that section because she's now dropped down into 21st. So poor Daisy, she really is struggling on this opening lap. So coming out of the chicane then at the end of the first lap, Akagi still sat in 3rd place, but he's got Jake Dixon catching up to the back of him very, very quickly. So hopefully he can try and keep in front of Jake, but I'm assuming Jake will probably get past him because he's had some very good pace throughout some races this season. Although Akagi did catch and pass Jake Dixon in the last race, so we know that Akagi can beat him. But I think at this point of the race, at least, Dixon probably has the better package underneath him, so he'll probably be able to pass Akagi without too many worries. But as they go into Strubben, not quite close enough there for Dixon to pull off the move, so fair play to Akagi. He managed to brake late enough into Strubben to keep ahead, but he'll probably get him on the straight here towards the chicane. Although again, actually, Akagi took a very good line through there and probably got a slightly better exit than Jake Dixon. So Akagi really is playing to the bike's strengths there. He's getting into the corners well, he's lining up well, but Dixon, of course, goes past inevitably. I did expect him to pass, but he actually did pass a little bit earlier than I expected after they went out of Strubben. I thought that Akagi would probably keep in front all the way to the Bolt, but to be fair to Dixon, that was a very good move in the middle of the chicane to get up the inside there. So Akagi down to 4th place, but that'd be still a fantastic result, of course. Best finish so far this season has been 9th in the last race, and that was a fantastic result itself as well. But he's got Augusto Fernandez behind him now, and Augusto does seem to be on the charge, so Akagi probably will be demoted back to 5th place, and then it's Nicolo Balega behind him. So here we are then approaching the end of the first sector on this 3rd lap, and you can see Fernandez has caught up to the back of Akagi. I'm assuming it's going to be very, very similar to the Jake Dixon situation. Akagi's probably going to get a slightly better exit out of this corner just by taking the better line. But Fernandez will have that straight line speed. He'll close up, probably round the outside through the first part, up the inside into the second one, just like Dixon did to him. So here we go. You can see, yeah, it is the same move pretty much, except Fernandez actually got in front a little bit earlier than Jake Dixon did. Oh, there's been a crash, so I'll just swap to Daisy Jackson, and she's actually back up to 23rd position now. She had dropped down to 25th when I had a brief look before, and I think that was one of the Italtrans bikes down, so I'm guessing it was Dalla Porta because I can see Joe Roberts a little bit up the road. But there's actually a very big group in front of Daisy, so perhaps she can latch onto the back of that and start to fight her way through it, because it does seem like she's catching it up. So we're about halfway around this penultimate lap of the race, and Ralph Fernandez has finally got past Nicolo Balega, and he is immediately on the charge of Tomatsu Akagi. You can see he's caught him already. At the start of the lap, he was absolutely nowhere near, so Ralph Fernandez is going to have this position, but Jake Dixon in front, once again, like in the previous race, is actually struggling a little bit. So there goes Ralph Fernandez up the inside of Tomatsu Akagi, which demotes Akagi back into 6th position. But maybe if Jake Dixon struggles a little bit, Akagi might be able to get him and get back up into that top 5. But I think the real trouble is going to be from behind now, because it looks like Joe Roberts and Remy Gardner have both got past Nicolo Balega, and they've also got extremely good pace. So I've just got to hope for Akagi that he can hang on to the back of Fernandez, get away from them a little bit, because there's only one lap to go, and it'd be so cruel to have these good positions snatched away from him right at the end of the race. But Lowe's has already crossed the line. He's absolutely checked out. So Roberts is already right on the back of Akagi, unfortunately, as we come up towards the line. Then to start the final lap, Roberts is going to be passed very quickly, yes, because Roberts has done the fastest lap of the race, so that would explain what's happened there. So Joe Roberts up the inside of Akagi, demotes him back down to 7th position. Can he try and hang it around the outside? He's looking over his shoulder then to see who's behind him. It is Remy Gardner on the other IO bike that, of course, teammates to Fernandez, who overtook him on the previous lap. But you can see that Dixon is battling with Fernandez in front, so hopefully Dixon will lose a little bit of time from that and it'll allow Akagi to catch back up. But Remy Gardner's already all over the back of Akagi. In fact, he's probably got him on the exit of Strubben here. I think he has. They're side by side. And we'll just see that same move that's happened to Akagi throughout this race. He just hasn't got the straight line speed, unfortunately, on that speed up bike. But here we go then, through the chicane. Well, it's debatable to call it a chicane, actually. It's the quick flip-flop, I suppose. And Akagi is sat in 8th place now. I think he should be safe for this position because Celestina Vietti is a little bit behind. Of course, the AI can make ridiculous gaps up in Moto2 very, very shortly, as we know. But I think that might be a little bit too far for Celestino Vietti to actually catch up. I think he might be able to get him right at the chicane. Maybe he might catch up to him, but he's not going to be able to pass him. Jake Dixon in front is actually holding up Joe Roberts and Remy Gardner, but it's not going to be enough for Akagi, unfortunately. He's not going to catch up to Dixon. Unless there is some shenanigans at this final chicane, I can't see it happening. So as we go towards the final chicane, then Akagi's actually going to come home in 8th place, which is absolutely phenomenal. It's the best result of the season here. And it's been a really good ride as well. It was a well-earned 8th place. It wasn't like people crashed in front of him like in the last one. You can see the chicane 3 wide in front of him. If there was another lap, he definitely would have got past Jake Dixon. But up towards the line then, Tomatsu Akagi comes home in 8th position. And Daisy Jackson actually has got up into 22nd, right on the back of Albert Arenas here. So Sam Lowe's absolutely cleared off in that one, winning by 7.4 seconds ahead of Navarro in 2nd and Augusto Fernandez in 3rd, ahead of Raul Fernandez in 4th position. Dixon then ended up in 6th. He managed to fend off Remy Gardner, but Joe Roberts did beat him up towards the line. Akagi then, of course, came home in 8th place, which is absolutely amazing to see. So that'll definitely help us out in the Teams Championship. And unfortunately, Daisy Jackson, once again, outside of the points. So she hasn't scored any points this season yet. It doesn't look like she probably will at this rate, but 22nd is probably not one of her worst results. And she's beat the 2 NTS bikes, which I guess is good, but unfortunate for her, she didn't have a very good first lap, and I just don't think she recovered from that. In the Riders' Championship, then, Joe Roberts continues to lead, 16 points now ahead of Marco Bezzecchi, because, of course, Bezzecchi had an absolutely appalling race. He was leading on the way down to the first corner, and then he got that touch from Sam Lowe's, went wide with Augusto Fernandez, and that was it. He went absolutely backwards after that. Sam Lowe's in 31 points behind Joe Roberts now, so after that win, definitely bringing himself back into contention a little bit. Akagi actually moves up into the top 20 in the championship now with 25 points, actually tied with Nicola Balega, also on 25. Only 1 point behind Celestina Vietti, a couple of points behind Siren and Vierge here as well. So Akagi actually has got some room for improvement. If he keeps bringing these good results, he should move up the table quite considerably. And Jackson, unfortunately, still down in 32nd position. She's not been able to get a better result than Baldassari, Agora or Corsi so far. In the Teams Championship then, with that victory for Sam Lowe's and a pretty good result for Augusto Fernandez as well. I think he got 3rd place, so really good weekend for the Mark VDS squad. They move up into the lead ahead of Sky VR46, Ital Trans and Intact GP, so they actually moved up 3 places. That's pretty good. Same with the Beta Tools Speed Up, they moved up 3 places as well. We actually make some really good inroads on American racing here with yet another good finish for Akagi, and the American racing boys absolutely nowhere near us this time, so only 8 points behind those guys now, which is actually quite a sizable chunk that we've taken out of them in this race, so that is something to be pretty proud of. So hopefully we can try and take that 13th place. 20 points is quite a big gap to make up, considering we only have 25 already, but we're about halfway through the season, so if Akagi keeps improving like this, we might be able to potentially overtake NTS as well, but we're not going to be too high up in the Teams Championship, I don't think. But that's both the junior races out of the way now. It's time for the MotoGP race. It is Assen, so this one should be fairly easy for myself, but I don't want to speak too soon. It should be a pretty fun one as well. It'll be interesting to see how the Ducati works around such a corner-oriented circuit, but we'll get this one started then. Hopefully I could try and get another win, because I really am disappointed that we lost to Quartararo in the last one. ALEIX! ALEIX is on pole! Oh, wow, okay. So ALEIX Spargaro puts Aprilia on pole position then, ahead of Maverick Vinales in 2nd place. That is a shock. I didn't even know that ALEIX would be quick enough in the mod to do that. So that's why it's a surprise to me more than anything. Mir then up in 3rd place. So it seems like whatever has happened to Mir in the last couple of races, he seems to have got over it in qualifying, at least for this race, because he's been outside the top 10 in the last couple of races. It's interesting that Vinales and Mir start doing well as soon as Quartararo becomes my closest rival. So that's really the ride I've got to watch out for, Fabio Quartararo. I think I am going to go with the medium tyre here. I'm not going to go with the hard tyre. So back to my favoured combo, really, the soft front with the medium rear. Because at this circuit, there isn't any particularly weird corners or temperatures that will require a different tyre compound. So I think the soft medium should work pretty well here. So we'll get this one started. We've got to make up some good positions on the first lap, but the AI's pace isn't too great at this circuit, so we don't have to rush things too much.
Just a few minutes to go until the Grand Prix begins. Assen, the motorbike university, is once again ready to put everyone to the test.
So then Quartararo is actually 4th place on the grid, so he's not too far back at all. He's right near the front, and I'm guessing the leaders will pass ALEIX very, very quickly. So waiting for the lights to go out here then. Lights on, away we go. We've got one Aprilia at the front, one Aprilia at the back, as you can see Savadori right in front of us there. Same with Marini. So we go down towards the first corner then. Braking nice and early, don't want to go clattering into anyone. Rossi is actually a little bit further up the grid than he has been in the last few races, and he didn't get taken out the first corner this time, although I've just given him a bit of a nerf there, although he kind of just sat up for no reason on the outside of the circuit. Not really sure why he did that particularly, but not going to question it. So we are up to 16th, and we got the other teammate of Bastianini in front of us. We go at the inside of him. Bagnaia is pretty far down the order, same with Rins and Brad Binder as well. Marc Marquez on the outside there in 11th place. We've got a pretty good exit compared to Oliveira. I've actually just touched the rear tyre of Oliveira, so good job we didn't crash. The front definitely locked there with a little bit of contact. Zarco then down in 10th place. Up the inside goes Bagnaia, though. Bagnaia comes back at us. We're back in front of Bagnaia. They're back up the inside of Zarco. So in the top 10 halfway around this first lap, and we've still got 2 Hondas, a Yamaha, Ducati, another Yamaha, so I can see Quartararo already up the road in a couple of positions ahead. You see Marquez trying to go on the outside of Nakagami here. I thought about going for my dive bomb that I did on Nakagami a few videos ago at that corner, but I wasn't quite close enough to do it this time. But we're right on the back of Mark here. Can we try and get him? Mark's still holding on to that 9th place. It seems really weird to be fighting for 9th place with Marc Marquez, but this season he actually has been struggling a lot in this career. But here we go, we've got a really good run on him. Can we try and make a move here through this section up the inside of Marquez? Yes, we can. So it is now Nakagami in front of me, and I think, to be honest, I'll probably get him as well on the run down towards the chicane. Around the outside of Takaki. Nakagami comes right up to the back of Morbidelli, and we've got him through the exit as well. Martin going super slow in front, so we're up to 6th place already, but ALEIX is actually still leading the race. So that's probably why the pack seems to be quite slow, because ALEIX Espargaro's at the front, but to be honest, he's actually getting away from Joao Mir a little bit, if anything. So go on, ALEIX. She's got some pace in this one. And I kind of feel bad about stealing a win off Aprilia, because they've been absolutely nowhere in this career mode throughout all the seasons. They didn't even score a single point legitimately last season. They got a glitch that got them into the points, but they didn't score an actual legit point. But here we go, up the inside of Fabio Quartararo. I feel like 50% is too long for this. I probably should have turned it down a little bit. We're already up into 5th place, and we're not even halfway around the second lap of the race yet. This is what I mean about the AI being very, very poor here at Assen. Even starting from the back, we're almost up to the podium spots by the end of the second lap. In fact, I wouldn't put it past me being there. So we've got Maverick Vinales in front of us, and then it's Jack Miller. And you can see Mir and ALEIX Espargaro are escaping a little bit at the front. But, I mean, I've got, 11 laps still to catch him up, so I'm not too worried about it. And they're only about a second in front, if that, of me now. And I'm still behind the 2 riders in front. So once I get past them, probably only be about half a second. So we'll see on the run down towards the chicane if we can try and get Vinales similarly to how we got Marquez on the previous lap, and I think we probably will be able to, but I suppose there's no point going for anything too risky. So I'll sit behind him for now, because we don't need to pass both these guys before the end of this lap. So as we go into the chicane then, Vinales going a little bit defensive. That definitely compromised my line a little bit, and I couldn't really take the line I wanted to, so I actually didn't pass either of them, which is quite interesting. Espargaro then 32.7, I did a 31.9, so even though I was stuck behind Vinales and Miller, so we did a slightly faster lap, but I suppose that's because I did pass a few riders at the start of that lap as well. So then, see if we can try and pass Vinales in this first sector, because even though we're on a charge, I don't want to lose too much time stuck behind him. I know I took a big pause there, but up the inside of Vinales, and we're going to get Miller as well here, because Miller kind of turned in on Vinales, so cost himself a load of times. We're up to 3rd place already then, and we've got 0.8 of a second up to Joao Mir, so we should be able to catch that hopefully by the end of this lap. But I think Mir is now looking for a move on ALEIX. I think ALEIX is probably led for about as long as he's going to, because either me or Mir are going to come past him very, very quickly. So into the chicane then. We've actually had a really good run to the chicane. We're close up to Mir here. We're going to get him before the line. So now up to 2nd position. 31.2 on that lap. Lap 4. And we're already up to 2nd. And it's not like we've got a big gap to the leader. We're right behind him. So ALEIX Espargaro on the Aprilia. Quickly leading then. Ahead of myself in 2nd position. It's about where we make this pass on ALEIX. We could probably... Well, actually, I don't know where to pass him, to be honest, because we usually blast past the Aprilia like it's standing still, but clearly ALEIX is the rider with the pace in this one. But we're going to go straight up the inside through Strubben, and we've cut that corner a little bit, so I'm going to let ALEIX keep that position. I don't know why I turned in so much. I just wanted to give him plenty of room. So ALEIX for now then holds on to the lead through my own mistake, but I'm sure we'll be past him very, very shortly through the Veenslang up towards the Ruskin Hut, almost hitting the Aprilia at the back there, again on the green. So probably going to have to give myself some sort of penalty if I do something again like that, infringing the track limits. So we've got 8 tenths then to Joan Mir through the Bolt. I probably could have dive bombed him there, but I didn't want to risk a crash or anything like that. There's no point when it's really someone that's not ever going to be a threat in the championship, of course, because it's the only race he's been anywhere near the front. So here we go, trying to get the inside through the Dukersloot. Not quite been able to do that one. So it's probably going to be a pass either into or out of the chicane, I would have thought. Through that corner, I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. I think I've said that plenty of times over the years that I have no idea how to pronounce that. I'm not even going to try it. Through the Ram's Hook then. I think we've got a pretty big lead to Joan Mir behind, so not going to worry about that at all. Just try and line up the chicane perfectly. We've done it pretty well here, so we should be able to get the run on ALEIX Spargo up towards the line. Then we're in the slipstream of ALEIX Spargo, 1 minute 32.2, so a little bit slower on that lap, but there we go. We hit the front at the start of the 5th lap here. We managed to take a long time to do that, considering we're up into the top 5 at the end of the 2nd lap. But there you go, we finally hit the front then. We've gone past ALEIX Spargo. I actually kind of feel a bit bad relegating him to 2nd position. I don't usually feel bad about taking the lead, but since he's on the Aprilia, I do feel for him a little bit. But a podium would still be fantastic for that team, and he's actually got a pretty big lead over Mir, and you can thank, well, never mind. I was about to say he's got a big lead over Mir. Mir is now underneath him. So he did have a big lead over Mir. He had about 8 tenths, but then he's also lost that 8 tenths now that I've passed him, so Mir is right back on the back of him. And unfortunately, Mir has gone through. So down to 3rd place then for ALEIX Spargo. We'll have to see what he can do for the rest of the race, but I think I'm just going to check out now. So then, starting this final lap of the race, it's been pretty boring for me. I've been out front the entire time. We're about just over 9 seconds in front of the guys behind. 9.2 seconds, you can see there. And behind, Miller had actually caught and passed both ALEIX Spargo and Mir, which unfortunately put ALEIX off the podium. But now Mir has just gone back past Miller, but on that same lap, Spargo had actually battled with Mir and they swapped positions a couple of times, so I think there's actually a bit of a scrap between the 3 of them. In fact, actually on the map, it looks like there's a whole train of them actually having a scrap over that 2nd position, so I have no idea who's going to come out on top. Honestly, I'm rooting for ALEIX to at least get on the podium, because there'll be a fantastic result on the Aprilia, and in fact he was apparently, because Miller's just overtaken him for 3rd place. So not sure what's exactly going to happen at the end of this race. I really hope ALEIX can come home with something good. But it seems like there's a huge train behind. We've got 9.5 seconds to that train now, so we'll probably get 10 seconds before the line. But as always, the AI have their weird simulated time, so it'll probably be back down to about 8 seconds or something, according to the timer, but we probably would have been about 10 in front when it happened. But here we go then, towards the last sector of the race. It has been a pretty easy one. Maybe for some tracks where I know that AI are extremely weak, I might turn down the race distance just to make it a bit more difficult for myself, such as Mazzano. I know for a fact in Mazzano the same thing will happen, probably even quicker, so I just want to make sure that definitely I actually make it a challenge for myself. But up towards the line then, another win here, kind of avenging the mistake from the last race to lose to Quartararo. So yes, then ALEIX actually got 3rd place back in front of Jack Miller. Joan Mir came home in 2nd place, and ALEIX Spargo in 3rd, 4th for Jack Miller, 5th for Viñales, and 6th for Quartararo. I think Quartararo did get past Viñales at one point, but Viñales must have got back ahead of him then, so the 2 Yamaha teammates taking points off each other there. So in the Riders' Championship then, you can see Viñales moves 1 point now ahead of Fabio Quartararo, so those two are extremely close. Mir actually moves back up into 5th in the championship after a pretty good result. Marquez actually drops behind Jorge Martin now. So Jorge Martin on an absolute charge through the championship. But we've now got a 71-point lead over Viñales, 72 over Quartararo, and 78 over Miller. So we are really, really pulling a big amount of points on these guys now. In the Teams Championship then, we actually move up to 2nd position ahead of the Ducati Lenovo team. I think that's more down to the fact that Bagnaia had a really, really poor race. And obviously Miller didn't quite finish on the podium, but 37 points still to the Monster Energy Yamaha team. It is going to be very, very tough to actually overhaul those guys because they've both been pretty fast all season. So in the Constructors' Championship then, another win for Ducati puts us 67 points ahead of Yamaha. Suzuki now actually move up ahead of Honda once again, so Suzuki and Honda swapping positions over that 3rd and 4th, but only 2 points in it between those two. And Aprilia now have 31 points on the Constructors' Championship because ALEIX Spargo brought home a fantastic P3 there, so that's literally more than half of their points have just been scored in this race. That that is something interesting to see. And they're actually not too far behind KTM, so Aprilia actually might have a shot this season of not being at the bottom if ALEIX can pull out some more performances like that. So since there were no incidents in this race, we'll head to the career hub now. We'll see what awaits us there. Hopefully we don't go into the negative money, but I think it's going to be pretty close to that now because we only had 50,000 credits left before this episode started. So then we gained 8,100 reputation points, which takes us up to 919,200 reputation. And on the credits front, we gained 56,250 once again, which actually takes us back over the 100,000 threshold to 109,153. But I doubt we're going to stay there for too long. We'll probably dip below it very shortly. In the Moto2 team then, not a great weekend for the Prestige once again, as you'd expect. Only minus 168 to be fair for Akagi with that 8th place, which is a fantastic finish, but we lost 504 overall, and you can see how low that bar now is. However, they did bring home 450 research data, which is definitely a hefty amount, and considering we had a little bit left from the last upgrade as well, that is nice, so hopefully we'll be able to get a new upgrade on the bike very, very shortly. As for Moto3 then, actually not too bad on the Prestige, minus 384, so we're still above that halfway line, and obviously the research data doesn't particularly matter for these guys since the bike's maxed out, but it still brought home a fairly decent amount of it there. So that pretty much brings this episode to a close then. Unfortunately, we don't quite have enough research data to actually upgrade the Moto2 Junior team. I did just quickly check. But those guys actually are bringing home a decent amount of research data, and Akagi actually bringing home some decent results now. Obviously, he had a couple of 13th finishes, which were his best of the season. Sachsenring, he got that 9th place, but to be fair, obviously there was that crash in front of him where 2 fell off right at the end, and he finished 9th, so he probably would have got 11th otherwise without that, but you got to stay on to actually do well. Obviously, he got knocked off himself at Mugello, so he has been on the other end of being taken out by people, so he got that 9th place, but then Assen, purely on merit, gets that 8th place, running in 5th place for quite a lot of the race, and it wasn't wet or anything like that, wasn't anything crazy. He hadn't even qualified on pole and just sort of dropped back. He'd actually started lower down and made his way up, so that was a really good race from Akagi, to be honest, bringing home that 8th place finish. I'm quite happy with that. As for Moto3, a pretty standard weekend for them, really. I think Stewart had a really good first couple of races to the season. Obviously, he got that 4th place in Austin. He got the win in Le Mans, which was in the rain, so you can't really say, oh yeah, he should be winning loads of races, but he showed he actually had the pace if, you know, he could get out front and he could actually pass people, because he had to pass Alcoba. And of course, the 4th place in Austin was in the dry, so I saw that he could fight with the guys at the front, saw he actually overcame them, but ever since then, he's not really had that speed again. However, he has been around 7th, 8th in every race, so he's not considerably dropped off. Whereas Hernandez, he's been around that position actually the whole season. Obviously, in the last race, he was abysmal because he was outside the points, but around 11th, 12th place seems to be a Hernandez spot. Until you get a bit later on into the season, he seems to improve a little bit. He did last season anyway. He started getting a few 4th places here and there, so hopefully as the season goes on, they can pick up some better results, but I'm not going to get my hopes up with it because they've been pretty poor up until this point. As for the MotoGP race, not too much to say about that. Of course, we easily cut our way through the pack. To be honest, the most notable part of that is ALEIX Espargaro bringing that Aprilia home in 3rd place, so fair play to ALEIX, but another pretty easy win for us. But I think the Kimi Ring is next. Yes, it is, so it is going to be a bit more difficult for us, I think, than the next race. It's going to be very, very tough to make our way through, so hopefully you guys look forward to that one. But I hope you did enjoy this video. Hope you enjoyed the rest of your day. Hope you're all staying safe, and I shall see you in the next one.